Hello and welcome to Brand Pi's Energy Voices, where we explore the pressing topics and hear the enlightening perspectives of leaders across the energy sector. My name is Will Basanko, and I'm our managing partner of our energy practice at Brand Pi, and we're an independent consultancy that works with senior leaders across the sector to ensure that their business, their brand, and their culture is well positioned to respond to a world in transition. Last time on Energy Voices, we drove into the world of EV and spoke with two brand leaders who were leading the movement towards electric mobility in their respective regions. And today we're going to explore energy branding in a different form. We'll hear about two organizations who are creating critical connections with the audiences who need it most as we step into the world of grid infrastructure and energy distribution. But why grids? Why are we exploring this today? Well, many of you who are immersed in this world will be familiar with the concern, I think, that grid infrastructure is struggling to keep pace with the rapid growth of clean energy technologies. Recent reports from the IEA show that grid investment needs to double, I think, by 2030, and that rapid innovation in this space is going to be critical to help us meet the climate goals. So at a time when the energy crisis is pressing on, energy usage is anticipated to double, and the goal for clean and affordable energy is yet to be met, it's clear that attention and ambition is needed. So enter the power of brand as that tool to raise ambition, drive progress, and to respond effectively to those urgent and critical needs. As you can see today, we're very lucky. I'm very, very excited to be joined by two brilliant leaders who really exemplify ambition in their respective fields. First of all, I'm so pleased to introduce Diana Berman, who is the head of communications at DTEK Grids, part of the largest energy company in Ukraine, a business that has seen its role in society change drastically as a result of the ongoing war and its impact on everyday power access. Diana has over 15 years of experience in strategic communications and has led her communications team through this very challenging time. I'm so delighted you're here with us today, Diana. And
Hello, William.
Hi. And joining Diana as well, we have William Brent, the CMO of Husk Power Systems, the world-leading mini-grid company that is electrifying villages across India and Africa with the aim of decarbonizing the grid in places with historically unreliable power. William is a seasoned, should I say, executive, climate solutions entrepreneur, and a very passionate advocate for social impact and sustainability, and a great chap too. So William, I'm very, very pleased you're here with us.
Yeah, great to see you, Will. Always pleasure to hang out with another William.
Always. The William Club keeps going strong. Well, thank you both, as I said, and we have a lot to discuss today. But let's start with a big question for you both. And of course, today's episode title is Critical Connections, Brand Building During Times of Crisis. So I'll ask you both, what role do you think brand plays for a business during a time of crisis? William, I'll go to you first.
It's a great question. So I worked for an agency called Weber Shandwick, which is part of the IPG network of marketing services companies years ago. And that's when I actually got started in renewable energy. And they did a survey that I interviewed several hundred executives from around the world. And those executives assigned 63% of company market value to reputation. So 63%, whether that number is accurate or not, whether it could be 33% or it could be even 10%, even whatever the percentage is, it's still significant, right? So if reputation is that much correlated to your brand value or your corporate reputation, at any time, right? Imagine that. I would imagine it would be an order of magnitude higher during times of distress, conflict, whatever it might be. So, I think that you have to be paying attention to your reputation and the brand during normal times. And I'd love to hear from Diana on this, but I would assume that you have to pay even that much more attention to it in times of distress.
Okay, I think that crisis is amazing time for brand because if brand has a good reputation, if it is a love mark, it will overcome crisis much easier than any others one. At the same time, my experience tells me that crisis is amazing time as well to form a really good reputation for brand and to transform it significantly. For instance, before the war, DTEK used to be firstly a technical company. We transformed this brand image to service company, but the war gave us an opportunity to transform our image to national hero company. And if you act accordingly to time, if you're responsible to this time, and if your actions respond to the society request, it's emerging time for your reputation.
I think that's so powerful, Diana, through times of adversity to try and reframe that as opportunity. I think that's a really lovely setting. And, the 63% that's only going up, William, from your comment earlier, I think that's another way to really stress the urgency of this. So let's dive a bit deeper, I think. And you touched on it there, Diana, the unique journey that you've been on at DTEK Grids. And today's discussion is rooted in the power and potential of brand during times of adversity and crisis. You've been with DTEK Group since 2018. And, what I'd love to know is how have you seen the energy landscape evolve in the past 6 years? How has DTEK Grids responded to these changing needs, do you think?
That's a perfect question, Will. Thank you, and very complex one. I've joined DTEK in 2018, 6 years ago, and we as a business have been so much that some other companies haven't been in a century during these 6 years. We succeeded in responding to some general public needs typical for the industry, for instance, energy transition. Moreover, we met very specific ones, for instance, the war in Ukraine, when energy companies became a defender at the energy front line. And in these circumstances, the brand transformed a lot, evolving from the traditional energy company, as I mentioned, to national hero. In 2018, Ukraine implemented a reform of the energy market. I just joined a business, and as all participants of the market, DTEK unbundled its energy generation from distribution and supply. As our business developed, we realized the importance of the brand more and more. And the power of brand can help you to solve complicated business issues, because in 2018, government didn't provide large-scale communication campaign. And people have no information about new conditions of energy market operations, new opportunities for customers. And it provoked a lot of confusion in public opinion, in media, in social media. We as a company have done enormous work informing people via media, social media, chatbot, even via bills. And we produced a lot of content with a focus on infotainment and to educate people. I think it took us 3 years to reach a desirable brand awareness. But up to now, some people don't distinguish a DSO and supplier. And the most difficult task for us was to change perception of our employees, to form opinion that they are not employees of the former old energy company, to persuade them that they are employees of new service energy company today. We have done a great work in employee communications first year, but despite that, even a few years, I personally caught some colleagues at the assets on the phone conversation when they used the old name, introducing themselves in the conversations. And sometimes I personally explained why it is important to display a new brand, a new culture, a new philosophy of the company to the world. So returning to corporate transformation topic, when we succeeded to achieve some tangible results with the awareness of reform in Ukraine, we acquired 2 new assets. And we almost doubled the amount of our employees and our customers. And we began to work in 5 biggest regions, covering almost a quarter of Ukrainian citizens and employing more than 18,000 of people. And it was a dare to integrate new assets to DTEK corporate culture. I think you know very well what's it, because I know some campaigns that you introduced for your clients. And brand was a core in this integration process, and it allowed us to unite people around DTEK's value, to translate, to display this value to the world, and sharing and broadcasting those values. But even more difficult than to involve employee in DTEK's corporate culture was to provide a proper communication with customers. And the reason is one more time DTEK's brand, because assets that we acquired objectively had poorer standards of quality than DTEK, and it would take us years to raise the quality to DTEK's level. And there were a lot of customers with low satisfaction index, but they had knew before what DTEK is, and they expected high quality from DTEK. And people addressed a lot of negative emotions based on past experience, appealing to our public image. And for our communications, and especially for customer support team, it was a really challenging job. We provided special communication campaign with narratives about our goal to improve the situation, with an honest statement that it would take us some years to fix everything. We use storytelling. I know that you love storytelling. We use storytelling and no makeup native videos for social media, consistently demonstrating every small progress. The heroes of this video were our employees, and they show real work in progress. And this way we killed 2 birds with 1 stone. We overcome negative clients and form an energy brand with a human face. And in parallel, we overcame one more huge challenge, and all of it happened just in a few years. We successfully provided communication support of incentive tariffs implementation. All European countries introduced these tariffs some years ago, and Ukraine was one of the last who introduced them. And as every time, very often happens, people wanted to get better quality without any additional costs. And in this situation, DTEK used its public image of very innovative company, of pioneer of smart grids technology to mitigate customer complaints, to explain how their money would be invested and how it would improve quality of customers' life. And we try to explain people in a simple manner what energy is, try to explain the crucial role of smart grids in renewables growth, in e-vehicles infrastructure growth, smart city electrification development. And we have created a narrative. Investment in the electrical grids are investments in the future of Ukraine. And we distributed this narrative via all possible channels. While we were communicating this incentive tariffs, we met COVID as all over world, as world over around. It helped, Brent in this case helped us a lot in communication with our employees, because they trust us sometimes more than government or media. And it helped us to motivate people and keep them willing to work and get vaccinated. And after COVID time, 92% of our employees said that they have felt DTEK's care and felt gratitude towards the company. And in this endless change management, we met the sadness day in our history, 24th of February 2022, beginning of the war. And being the biggest company, we biggest energy company in the country. We got an extra responsibility, and since the first day of the war, more than 700 days, we have been restoring electricity for tens of millions of people, just after the shelling, sometimes under the shelling. And it's a huge trial for us to keep the energy front line. And at the same time, it's a great opportunity to become a national hero company. And we use this chance 100%.
It really is staggering, Diana. You know, when I hear your journey over the past 6 years and the amount of obstacles and challenges that have come your way, and the way you've risen and responded to those and demonstrated such resilience, I think is really inspiring. And you know, through the course of this conversation, we'll dive a little bit deeper into some of those levers that you've been able to lean on and pull in response to that adversity. But I think it also paints a picture of a landscape that is facing such change at such pace. And you know, William, as I turn to you and your journey, you know, you've been a leader in the energy space for quite some time now, and of course have been at Husk since 2021. But how have you seen the energy landscape evolve over the past few years, and how are you at Husk responding to that?
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, Diana, I mean, it's just so inspiring to hear the work you're doing. Really amazing. Maybe just to back up for a second, Will. So I don't know how much people know about my company, and I think they need to know a little bit before I talk about, you know, sort of my perspective on what's going on. You know, so essentially we build, own and operate energy infrastructure for rural communities in South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa. These are the most climate vulnerable communities on the planet, yet they're also the communities who've had the least contribution to climate change, right? So they're going to be the ones who suffer from heat stress, drought, flooding, to the greatest degree compared to customers in more developed markets. And we're looking to either provide electricity and services on top of that electricity to customers who've never experienced electricity at all, or to customers who may have had access to an unreliable grid connection. So these are rural communities, often hard to reach, remote communities. It's complicated to reach them and do it in a sustainable way as a business. And you know, it requires a lot of rethinking how energy systems work in order to be able to actually serve these communities in a way that's both sustainable for them, but also sustainable for us. So that's just sort of as background, sort of the context that I'm working in and that Husk is working in. Overall, I'd say, you know, I mean, I've seen and this is partly Husk, partly just my own experience working in the industry, but, you know, I've seen something that Diana alluded to earlier, sort of moving from energy company to service company. That's a shift that I've witnessed over time. Thinking more about just supply and really having to start thinking very heavily about demand. And how you integrate demand into the service that you're providing, as opposed to just being a traditional utility who has ratepayers and you just send out a bill and collect your money every month. Really thinking about hard and long about the demand side and innovating on the demand side is really important. Going from centralized systems to decentralized systems and what that means for the energy sector, and trying to think about how do you integrate those two in order to be, you know, relevant for future energy systems. Also from sort of silos to more integrated approaches. That could be public-private, and thinking about how you bring those two together in a more impactful way to benefit the customer. Or it could be just internally as a business, and how we're trying to break down silos within our own business to better serve the customer. And then I think I would just point to, you know, customers have traditionally been captive to a monopoly in the energy sector, or often in electricity anyway. Let's limit it to electricity. Where there hasn't been a lot of choice. And that's another shift that I've been seeing over the past 20 years, which is away from being a captive of one supplier to actually someone with the agency to make a choice of their own based on multiple options that are now available in the marketplace. So that all of that has implications for branding, communications, marketing. But I think, you know, we've seen a huge shift, and it'll continue, right? I mean, I think one thing we're guaranteed of is that as an industry, we're going to be seeing more and more disruption and having to sort of adjust how we communicate, how we brand, and build reputation within all of those really complicated dynamics that I mentioned.
Yeah, those dynamics you mentioned, those shifts that are taking place, I think they are having a huge effect on the sector and how all brand leaders are approaching their brand and their brand strategy. You know, it reminds me, we ran a report last year, a study with 250 leaders in the energy space at CEO and CMO level. And I was so surprised by this. We found that 98% of those leaders were preparing to adapt their brand strategy to meet the evolving needs of the sector, to respond to those dynamic shifts you're mentioning there, William. And I think that's, you know, it's something that is affecting all of us, probably everyone who's attending this with us here this afternoon. And it's why these conversations, sharing these perspectives of tips on how to respond in such an ever-changing situation and landscape becomes so critical and important, because you're almost operating in quicksand at times, it feels like, you know, so how can you respond? And I think, Diana, you know, that's where I'd turn back to your story and your experience, because, you know, Ukraine suffered and is continuing to suffer, of course, as a nation through the ongoing conflict. And DTEK faced an enormous challenge, as you referenced, in 2022 and continuing to do so, you know, to keep the lights on during a war, blackouts, power outages, and of course, customers needed to know what was happening, right? There needed to be that line of communication and clarity. So how did you lead your team to respond to that and to support the business at this pivotal moment?
Nowadays, communications play a crucial role because they allow to keep more or less stable life of society, giving people confidence that they will be cared about, served, and with power supply in this hard time. But to describe fully the scale of communications in Ukrainian energy sphere nowadays, I would like to show you this issue in a broader perspective. Ukraine has been living under the war conditions more than 700 days, yeah? And for these 2 years, Ukrainian energy system lived through more than, I think, 1,000 missile and drone attacks, and more than 50% of energy infrastructure were destroyed. For instance, some regions, for example, Odessa region, survived real blackouts when the whole cities spent dozens of hours and sometimes a few days in a row without any power supply. And as the biggest company, DTEK Group has not only distribution grids, we have also power plants. That's why we have been playing a crucial role in the energy security of the country. And when the military fight in the battlefield, we fight on our energy front line. And DTEK Grids works in 5 biggest regions of the country: Kiev capital, Kiev region, Odessa, Dnipropetrovsk region, and we work in Donetsk region, the hottest point on the war map when Russian troops are concentrated. During all this time, we've done a great job. For instance, in spring 2022, we restored 10,000 kilometers of the grids in Kiev region that were liberated after the Russia occupation. Just to imagine, 10,000 kilometers, it's the distance between London and Hong Kong. And we work extremely hard. In the Donetsk region, for instance, we restore grids sometimes a few times per week in the same village, in the same town. And I would like to mention briefly that our colleagues from DTEK Energo, a company of DTEK Group that owns power plants, they have been doing extraordinary work as well, because they constantly restoring its assets destroyed by Russia. And what does it mean? We in communications only enhance this great contribution of the company to the life of Ukrainians. Can you imagine nowadays the life without power supply? I think you can't. Nobody can. You can charge the phone. You cannot call your mom to say you're alive. You cannot cook, wash, heat, because all systems, including heating and water supply, depend on electricity today. And if in 21st century there is no power supply, there is no life in your home. Once we have heard the phrase, "Like is like a bread, everybody needs it." This phrase belongs to unnamed citizen of Kiev region when he saw how our crew work and restores electricity in Irpin after its occupation of Russia. And this phrase, light is like a bread, everybody needs it, it became a motto for our work under the war. And nowadays, our communications team not only grow brand awareness or build reputation of the company, we give people hope and confidence, hope that the light will come back to their homes, and so will life. Working 24/7, we use all possible tools and channels to inform people. And after 2 years of this constant work, I can say that storytelling is the most effective way to do it. Because people get tired of news based on cold figures and facts. I think we noticed it after in 2 months after the war began. And to tell about our work and achievements through our employees' stories was the solution that we were looking for. We began with social media project with a simple but persuasive naming, the project called Heroes. That's my favorite one. We asked our employees only 3 questions, 3 simple questions based our storytelling on their answers. How the war has started personally for you? What has impressed you most during the war? And what are you going to do when the war finishes? Afterwards, we continue this project in advertising campaign, showing faces of our heroes on the billboards. And the second project is fully based on storytelling. It's called Letters from the Energy Frontline, and that's based on employees' memories. We write posts for social media in form of letters to the beloved people. It could be a letter from husband to wife or from a son to a mother. In this letter, we retell last events, grid restoration, but we do it in a very informal manner. And this content has enormous high engagement rate in social media and very warm comments of our customers. And for sure, storytelling is perfect decision for cooperation with media, national media, international media, no matter who we work with, BBC, Sky News, or some Ukrainian channel, the story of real person is perfect key to the audience.
And what a way to, lead with emotion during such a difficult time. And those initiatives you've just mentioned, I think there's a really wonderful human element to everything that you've just referenced in a sector that often forgets the storytelling part and emphasizes the statistics, as you said. So inspiring, Diana. And I think such a sense of purpose that unites everything you're talking about, that shared purpose during such a critical time. And William, the work that you're doing at Husk that you introduced us to earlier in providing, energy services to rural communities that may not have access, or the access that they do have may not be necessarily clean or reliable, for example, that's equally pioneering. And I should also celebrate you, William, and say congratulations, because you were also recently just named, was it most innovative energy company in the world by Fast Company, which is staggering. That's such a huge achievement. And as a business that's doing such innovative work, continuously innovating to meet the critical needs of your stakeholders, I wonder, how do you ensure your brand stays focused and on message? Because as a business is constantly evolving and adapting, innovating in new areas, that becomes really difficult. So what acts as your strategic North Star?
Yeah, I mean, so just to Diana, I mean, I can imagine that things are extremely difficult in Ukraine with the war and, people not having access to energy. But I just wanted to also make the point that there's still 700 million people, most of whom in sub-Saharan Africa, who have never had any access to electricity ever, right? So, there's a lot of I mean, if you consider energy to be a basic human right, which it is, there's so much work that we as a community have to do, whether it's in Ukraine or whether it's in South Asia or Sub-Saharan Africa, to make sure that these types of situations don't prevent a generation from, having a future, right? I mean, that's essentially where our customers have been for multiple generations, right? We're trying to end that for this generation, where people can actually go to bed at night with lights and wake up in the morning with whatever it is they need access to improve their lives, whether it's in the home or in their businesses. For us, I think, it sounds simple, but the North Star is, that, our customer has to come first. I mean, it's as simple as that. I mean, we are, by definition, we're a community-based solar mini grid, right? So we build a generation asset and we build the transmission and distribution networks within the communities that we serve. Those will be operating, we operate them for 20 to 25 years, the lifetime of the system. So by definition, we're in these communities. They're hard to reach, they're remote often. We are part and parcel of that community. And so, just by the nature of that relationship, it's as if we're, we have to take care of our family in essence, right? The customer in this case is the family that we serve, and who allows us to, do what we do. And they're facing a lot of challenges, right? I mean, in Nigeria, you've got 50% depreciation of the currency, you've got 30% month-on-month inflation. In India, we've seen flooding, which used to happen every 3 to 4 years, now happening every year. In the communities that we serve, and building resilient energy infrastructure that's decentralized and that can serve them is critical. But I think always putting the customer first and foremost is what we're all about. That's not traditionally what the energy sector has been known for. But for us as a company that's really operating and depending on these communities to survive and be sustainable over the period of our operations, we have to do that, because we are part of that community. And so, I think Diana's talked a lot about specific campaigns that DTEK has run, but clearly the message there that she's reinforcing is that it's all about how you engage that customer as well, right? And how do you respond to the needs of that customer, not from the point of view of a supplier, but from the point of view as a fellow member of that community that you're part of, right? So for us, I think, just to reinforce it, it's just, we have to have the customer first and foremost. People now in the development community talk about a people-centric solution, right? That's what we're all about, is putting the customer or the people that we serve, the business that we serve, at the center of what we're trying to do.
Mm. And you mentioned something so interesting there, William, about the role that you play in providing, that everyone in this industry ultimately plays in providing access to a future, right? And that is the role that your brand, every brand that is operating in this space, the role that it can play in people's lives. And now more than ever, I think that's so powerful, but also so important to recognize, isn't it? And
yeah, I mean, I think it's also, so power is just the first step, right? The power is a means to prosperity. Power, if you don't have it, as Diana said, you can't eat, you can't produce food, you can't go to school and do homework at night, you can't go to a health clinic and have a baby at night with lights on. Power is the enabler. It enables prosperity and the ability to enter the global economy, right? You can't have connectivity. There's nothing you can do without power. There's nothing did I say that right? It's something you can't do anything. I'll put it the other way, without power. And so, it's all about, laying that foundation. And I haven't even talked about the other aspects of the Husk business, but, we also do appliance sales and financing. We operate other energy services like e-motorcycle leasing and battery swapping, agro-processing, mobile cold chain for extending the life of perishable goods that farmers are producing. All of these things are just enablers for prosperity, right? And for having a future. So I do think it's a really important thing that often is forgotten, about power because we take it for granted.
Mm. And Diana, I remember last year when I was at the Charge Energy branding conference in Houston, you did a fantastic seminar for everyone in the room. And I remember you saying that for Ukrainians, energy means DTEK. And, I mean, ultimately, that's one of the greatest compliments I imagine you could receive or perceive. But it also shows what a critical role your brand is playing in people's lives and your company. And talk us through that journey of shifting from being, I think in your own words, so I hope I don't offend you here, but from being a boring technical company to a national hero. How did you achieve that?
You're 100% right, William. Nationally and internationally nowadays, when people think about energy in Ukraine, they think DTEK. And we got dozens of thousands requests from our customers from different regions of country, and not only from our customers, from customers of other companies. And they asked us about the progress in restoring of electricity, as well as media, Ukrainian and international ones, asked us to comment and to evaluate the situation. And what have you been doing to become a synonym of energy in Ukraine? We provide proactive large-scale communication campaign about the situation with energy sphere in Ukraine, with breaking news and updates. And we have become one of the most trustful information sources for common Ukrainian people, whether they are our clients or not, as well as for our employees, media, and international stakeholders. War influences people, changing needs, priorities, attention to company. And during the season of outages, people felt even more confused and anxious, trying to find trustful information and answers to their questions. That's why they applied to us enormously. And as William told, customers comes first. Yeah, we give people as many details as we can, following the safety rules for sure. And we use all our professionalism to explain what was happening with the energy system to people in a simple manner. Not to cheat, not to give empty promises, but to keep people's trust that light will overcome darkness, and Ukraine will certainly win. And in communications direction, DTEK Grids created more than 20,000, I think, pieces of content on social media, press, TV, including international ones such as BBC, CNN, Deutsche Welle, The Washington Post, Sky News. I think we worked with all media that exist, to be honest. And we cooperated a lot with the teams of international directors. As a result, we get documentaries about the work of energy workers in Ukraine based on DTEK's experience, shown on Netflix, BBC, and other popular media. And as a result, we shifted perception of the profession in the society. Before the war, it really was common, boring technical profession, energy worker. But nowadays, we became a national hero. And the most important thing is that 87% of our clients consider that Ukraine has power supply due to DTEK's work. And 91% of our clients consider our work as heroic one. This is the best compliment that could be done. And I would also to mention the customer service team work, because we cooperated closely with customer service team. And the number of phone calls grew up from 4,000 per day to 120,000. We got 300% of extra requests to our website and plus 150% followers on social media just in first months. And to deal with the situation, we provide some employees to attend to calls and Facebook requests. We expanded capacity of our contact centers, and we prepared a number of different scripts for different types of attacks on our energy system. And no doubt that the core value of every business is its employees. Communications enabled them stay motivated and work in extra difficult conditions. We do our best to allow people to feel them part of something meaningful, something really very important, part of current history of Ukraine. And we treat to our employees as to real heroes because they are real heroes. We reward them, we introduce them in communication campaigns, as I mentioned before. We proactively inform them and to ask their special questions and requests. And we make special hotlines to answer questions because it's very important in the crisis time to respond questions and to be the main source of information for your employees. And as a result, 75% of our employees feel hope and 57% feel pride when they interact with content in our corporate media. And I think that's significant contribution to maintaining the psychological state of our employees, and it enhances HR work significantly.
You touch on something so important there, Diana, which is your people, your talent in the business, right? And we've spoken at great length in this discussion so far about external perceptions and the power of brand there. But of course, brand also plays this really crucial role internally in building your culture and shaping that internal perception, one of pride and belief and motivation. So I'm interested, how have you both leveraged your brand story to attract the brightest talent and build your respective cultures? William, I'll come to you first.
Yes, thanks, Will. So I mean, I think there's two issues here, right? One is attracting and the other is keeping, right? And those are very different things. And the things like being named to the Fast Company 50 most innovative companies in the world list, it's great, right? We were named the world's best challenger brand in the energy industry by the Charge Awards last year, right? So these sort of external third-party validations are very helpful in terms of being able to go to the market, the labor market, and attract people to come, right? There's already a strong desire on the part of young people to align themselves with a business that has a social mission, right? As both DTEK and Husk Power do. So that's helpful, right? I mean, I was recently in India. I did a week-long tour of the 4 leading business schools in India. Super incredible experience for me, which made me realize just how bright the future of India is. Super smart kids. And they traditionally, a company like us, I mean, we're 600 people. We'll probably double that number by end of this year. So we're growing very quickly. But we typically wouldn't get invitations to come pitch essentially these students in India. But because there was a lot of excitement about what we're doing, we were invited, and we actually ended up, hiring 10 people into our new management training program that we're doing now. So it's exciting to see that the external branding and communications that we're doing is hitting the target that we're trying to reach, right? Now, that's all fine and good, but once you got them in, can you keep them? And that's a real challenge. And I think what Diana is talking about is I would argue, well along that path to, not only recognizing her employees, but also celebrating them in a way that gives them a feeling of purpose and helps them see the long-term future with the company, right? We're trying to do that, and we are doing it, but we're also growing at an extremely rapid pace, where the challenge of maintaining your brand consistency and discipline is challenging, right? If you're doubling your staff from 600 to 1,200 people in 1 year, that means you have to redouble your effort in terms of how you're engaging your employees, because ultimately they're the ones who will help to bring in the next generation of leaders into the company, right? You need them to be the champions, the ambassadors for the brand, and that's a hard thing to do. So that's something that we're very focused on, is trying to maintain a culture that's unified across the company. And that's also challenging because there are different parts of the business, right? You've got the legacy business, which is the more energy infrastructure business, putting assets in the ground, metal in the ground, stringing poles and wires, to customers. That's a very engineering heavy type of culture. And then you've got these other more maybe innovative or at least more service-oriented parts of the business that are coming in and being integrated, and that's maybe a different culture, right? So so the point being, it's extremely important. It's something that we are redoubling efforts on this year to truly try and figure out how to do in a way that addresses those two dynamics, right? Both scaling the team, but also trying to bridge different parts of the business that traditionally haven't really had the same culture, right? So I can't stress it enough. I think it's actually as important, if not more important, than the external work that we're doing.
I would agree, because ultimately these are the people that deliver on your brand promise. They shape everyone's experience with the brand, and it's incredibly important. And I think we're often seeing as well, in scale up scenarios such as yours, William, it's often so important to just clarify the forward direction of the business. What's the business story on a page? What's your purpose, ambition, and strategy as an organization? And how can everyone at least have clarity on just that and feel united by that compass, if you will, to guide them forward? We've covered
Absolutely
so much in this conversation, and there's so many more questions I could ask you both, but I think it's very clear here that brand is playing in both of your respective lines of work a very crucial role in driving ambition, responding to stakeholder needs, and operating with purpose to ultimately power progress, which has been so heartening and inspiring to hear. I'd love to close by asking you both, before we get to the lightning round, what is the most important lesson that you've learned over the past few years as leaders in this space that will continue to guide you as you continue to respond to this changing landscape? Diana, I'll come to you first.
Okay. I think I have learned a few very interesting lessons. Okay, the most interesting, drawing from my own experience, when selecting people to your team, pay crucial attention to soft skills rather than hard ones. If your team has been built around values and senses, it is resilient enough to survive any crisis and have good performance under any conditions. The second lesson is give an energy human face. It will make you closer to your clients. One more important lesson is be honest and transparent. And the last one, I think, what's very important, to be more than just a business. Be valuable for society, changing surrounding to the better. That's about ESG activities and ESG component of business.
Oh, I think they're fantastic.
Yeah, those are good. Yeah, I mean, those are hard to beat.
More amazing lessons.
Yeah.
Thank you. William, over to you.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, by sort of definition, we are an ESG company, I mean, or an impact company, right? So, the fact that we're electrifying unelectrified communities for the first time, we're making a huge amount of impact, right? So I'd say that's still very important and a lesson that we, have taken to heart. But given that Diana gave such a good list, I would maybe just add one other thing, which is that, partnerships are often given a lot of lip service, but very rarely are they actually implemented in a way that's meaningful for the partners. And for our industry in particular, where we're dealing with all kinds of stakeholders, development finance institutions, governments, customers, and customers that are different. An Indian customer is very different from the Nigerian customer. You cannot do what you need to do and continue to innovate and put the customer first unless you really think seriously about what those partnerships look like, and also open yourself up to the possibility of having a real partnership, that's not just about signing an MOU and announcing it to the world, but actually doing real hard work that you can only do if you are doing it in collaboration, right? And that's true internally as well. I think, our businesses tend to be siloed, and, how do you break those silos down and insist on, transforming the organization digitally and otherwise to make sure that that partnership is happening across the business as well. So that's my main lesson, I would say, over the years.
I think it's a really important addition, to Diana's fantastic list, and I thank you for adding it, William. I think we're seeing so much about this, the required shift from, mindset shift, let's say, from one of, competition to radical collaboration, and the need to collaborate around shared challenges in order to respond to the needs of the transition. And I think that's a really important lesson that we should take with us as we move forward. Well, I want to end this with our lightning round. And this is a very quick fire set of questions. And first thing that comes to mind for you both, to end us on a positive and let's say a bit of a fun note. So let's cue the music, and I'll cut to the first question. So, what gives you energy every day, William?
The impact I see on the ground, the lives that our company is impacting every day. I also love the complexity of what we do. It's a very difficult and complicated market that we're trying to address, and that gets me excited.
Diana?
My family, especially my 6-month-old daughter, my team, my perfect communication team, and my colleagues in DTEK Grids, and everyday meditation that allows me to speak with my soul for 2 minutes at least.
That's really powerful. If you could change one thing about branding in this sector, what would it be? Diana, I'll come to you first.
I would like to change a complex technical naming policy. I would like to make it simpler and friendlier to people.
So along those lines, I would sort of and I think Diana will understand this, as you will too, William, is that it's an industry where engineers aren't driving branding and communications.
Yes.
And no offense to any of the engineers on the line, yeah.
Hey, yeah. Our CEO is an engineer. He'll hate me, but he also knows I'm right.
What is the secret ingredient of a powerful brand, William?
Oh, me? The people behind it, as you said, 100%. That's the only answer.
Diana, ulterior answer?
I agree. But also dedication to your own values and real actions based on these values.
Good one.
What is the most challenging part of your role, Diana?
To find a compromise between stakeholder needs and company goals.
Yes, here. William, what about you?
Stakeholder related as well, but we are working in a very matrixed universe and trying to figure out how to survive and thrive in that matrix is really challenging. I don't see it getting any easier.
Interesting. And on the topic of interesting, what's the most interesting innovation that nobody's talking about that's piquing your attention right now, Diana?
That's an interesting question, William. I think it is potential of Ukraine to be the biggest producer of renewables in Europe and to replace with it Russian gas in European energy consumption. We have large opportunities to develop wind farming as well as solar power plants. Even now, despite the war, DTEK continues to build one of the biggest wind farms in Europe, Telegul wind farm with general capacity 500 megawatts. Interesting.
Fantastic. Very interesting. William, what about you?
Sorry, remind me the question again.
What's the innovation that's top of your mind that nobody's really talking about?
Well, everybody's talking about AI, and I do think that's an important innovation, but since it's already being discussed, I won't mention it. Well, I already did. So, if I had an AI response to your question, I wouldn't have done that. But I'm a human. What can I say? What's the most interesting innovation that nobody's talking about? Maybe that Africa and the innovations happening in our industry there in terms of decentralized energy solutions could be an actually incremental improvement to what's happening in more developed markets, right? The fact, if you look at China, where I spent 15 years, right, they leapfrogged fixed line telephony straight to mobile telephony. Is what's happening in Africa in terms of maybe not entirely bypassing, but augmenting what's happening with centralized solutions and grid solutions through decentralized solutions like mini grids that we do, is that will those provide key learnings that developed markets can then adopt and adapt? So in Nigeria, for example, we're working with central distribution companies. Oh, this is not a lightning round. This is a lightning round. Okay, I'll shut up.
No, this is, because you're right, it's truly fascinating.
Yeah, anyway,
the potential
you get it. You get the picture.
You get it. We'll pick up on that.
Yeah.
Leads me nicely onto the next one. What excites you both most about the future of energy? William, I'll come back to you.
Me? No, it's Diana's turn.
You first. Come on, let's keep it interesting. What excites you most about the future?
What excites about the future of energy? Well, that that it's 100% renewable. I mean, that's why I got into it in the first place. Is that I want to be living in a world where everything is clean.
Diana, what about you?
I agree with William. I'm excited about making energy greener, and this way we can make better future for our children. And in communication, we experience in energy very interesting time when technical industry becomes appealing.
Very, very good. And then the last one for you both. What is one question you would love to ask a fellow leader?
How do you...
Well, go ahead. You go first, Diana.
Diana, I'll come to you.
I have question I always ask. How do you manage to persuade your regulatory bodies? How do you manage to persuade them?
William, what about you?
Mine's more of an industry look. I'd say, how do you, and I think everybody struggles with this in the sort of CMO world or branding and communication world. How do you even decide what, technology platform, data platform you should be using? Because there's so many things that are coming online constantly, and trying to wade through all of these solutions and come up with something that's integrated but also efficient and also gives you what you need is a challenge. So I always ask that question, so what's the stack of solutions that you're using and why?
Really interesting. Well, thank you both, first and foremost, for a fantastic conversation. You're both two individuals who've inspired me when I first met you both, and to have you on this series is just delightful. So thank you again for sharing your perspectives with everyone here who's joined us today. And speaking of which, if you'd like to continue joining us for our Energy Voices conversations, please do subscribe on brandpi.com. We'll be back very soon with more conversations with seasoned energy leaders. But for today, I thank you, William, and I thank you, Diana, and look forward to speaking to you all again soon.
Yeah. Thank you, William. Thanks, Diana.
Thank you, William. Thank you, Will. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.